This week, iron bayonets clash, and ironclads duel. Last week, Brigadier General Samuel Curtis entrenched north of Pea Ridge. He has 10,500 men. There is 3 unbrigaded regiments directly under his command, the 24th Missouri Infantry, 3rd Iowa Volunteer Cavalry, and Bowen's Cavalry Battalion. The rest are in 4 divisions. The first 2 are delegated to Brigadier General Franz Sigel. The 1st Division is under Colonel Peter J. Osterhaus, who also commands the 1st Brigade of the 1st Division. The 2nd Brigade in Osterhaus' division is under Colonel Nicholas Grussel. The rest of the division is 2 artillery batteries. The 2nd Division is under Brigadier General Alexander Asboth. The 1st Brigade is under Colonel Frederick Schaefer. The rest of the division is unbrigaded infantry, cavalry, and some artillery to top it off. The 3rd Division is under Colonel Jefferson C. Davis, no relation to the more famous Jefferson Davis. The 1st Brigade is under Colonel Thomas Pattison, and the 2nd Brigade is under Colonel Julius White. There's also the 1st Missouri Volunteer Cavalry. Then we get to the 4th Division. It's under Eugene A. Colonel. Its 1st Brigade is led by Colonel Greenville M. Dodge. The 2nd Brigade is under Colonel William Vanderveer. He is relying heavily on experienced colonels to lead their outnumbered men to victory. In contrast to the small but clear structure of the Union, the Confederates number 16,500 men, and I'll break them down into wings. The right wing is under Major General Earl Van Dorn. Under him is Brigadier General Benjamin McCullough's division, made up of 5,700 infantry in Colonel Lewis Herbert's brigade and 3,000 cavalry in Brigadier General James M. McIntosh's brigade, along with 18 artillery pieces. Also under Dorn is Brigadier General Albert Pike's Indian Brigade of 2,500 cavalry, along with some other non-brigade units. Though Dorn isn't the only leader of Confederate forces, there's also the left wing under Major General Sterling Price of the Missouri State Guard. Price leads his own division, the only real division of the Missouri State Guard, the rest is barely brigades. Under him is the 1st Missouri Brigade, led by Colonel Luz Little, and the 2nd Missouri Brigade under Colonel William Slack, and finally the 3rd Missouri Brigade under Colonel Colton Green. The 2nd Division is under Brigadier General Martin Green, the 3rd Colonel John Clarks Jr., the 4th doesn't exist, the 5th belongs to Colonel James Sanders, 6th Major D. Lindsey, 7th and 9th belong to the same man, Brigadier General Daniel Frost. 8th is under Brigadier General James S. Rains. The Confederates are a huge but divided force, relying on the weight of their numbers and not coherent command for any possible victory. God knows their order of battle is complicated enough. On the morning of the 7th, General Curtis receives word of Confederate attempts to advance. He therefore sends out Colonel Dodge's brigade to reinforce the 24th Missouri Infantry already at Elkhorn Tavern, Colonel Peter J. Osterhaus to take parts of Ford Road. Osterhaus has Colonel Grussel's brigade, cavalry, and 12 cannons. He gets to the road and he meets McCullough's forces early in the morning near Leetown. Osterhaus's forces are coming up perpendicular to McCullough's, and he realizes if he strikes early enough, he can destroy part of the Confederate forces before they can combine with the rest into a major threat to Curtis. He then unlimbers his artillery and opens fire onto the Confederate cavalry. This takes McCullough by surprise. Confederate scouts told him the Union should be entrenched south of the Confederates. Now he's being attacked in the rear? McCullough sends forth McIntosh's cavalry and charges the Union line. The Union force here is small, and the charge breaks the Union line, allowing McCullough to seize the 3 unlimbered guns. The Confederate Native Americans then come in and ambush the left part of the Union line. And here we come to controversy. Did the Confederate Native American troops scalp and murder wounded U.S. soldiers? Well, we don't know for sure. Most likely, some men were scalped, around 8, and a few were wounded. We get this from the casualty report for the regiment: 24 killed, 17 wounded. This is a very unusual ratio, with more killed than wounded. So it's a primary source for this idea, along with some eyewitness accounts by men of the regiment the Native Americans attacked. Though I don't fully trust these eyewitness reports because they contradict each other and the official casualty report. I'm no expert on this. Please do not quote me on this. If you want to know more, please do your own research. Now, back to the battle. Ostrowski's contingent is forced back and come across Colonel Grussel and more of the Union infantry and artillery formed up in a makeshift line, while following Ostrow's are his Confederate troops. Grussel's men then waver in sight of this apparent defeat, but he rallies them. This gives time for Ostrow's to inform Curtis of the day's events and ask for reinforcements. Only 1,600 Union men are holding the line. McCulloch has enough men, but he doesn't need to charge yet. He can wait on reinforcements. No need to risk it at all. Then, an artillery shell rips through the Indian regiments, causing them to rout. Union artillery still has deadly control of the field, causing McCulloch to realize he needs to deal with the Union forces now before they whittle down his men. Therefore prepares the Confederate troops. Says, in 1 hour, they'll be ours. He divides the Confederate command further, hoping to fix the subpar system. Pike tries to rally his men. Not to much success. McCulloch decides that he will do reconnaissance in person. He alone travels to the edge of a forest. The Union line is further across the field from this forest, so he should be saved. He is shot down by a newly arrived Union skirmishing line right where the forest ends. The Confederate forces have no idea of their leader's death and wait for hours until the 16th Arkansas, who moved to attack the Union skirmishers, come across McCulloch's body. Command then passes to Brigadier General James McIntosh. McIntosh orders a charge of the Union line by the 2nd Arkansas. McIntosh decides to charge with his men. He used to lead the 2nd Arkansas, so sharing their glory does make sense. Then in front of his men? Well, leading from the front is never a bad idea. And now he has left his men. The 36th Illinois come against McIntosh's now solo charge and open fire, killing the man. Other Confederate regiments who were supposed to support the charge decided against it. The 2nd and 16th Arkansas withdraw. Command of the division goes to Colonel Ebert, and McIntosh's brigade go to Colonel Evander McNair. Colonel Ebert is now in command, but he doesn't know it. No one has told him. He waits, and after too long, he realizes, advancing with his men, hoping to flank the Union line, going unknowingly instead towards the Union right flank. Earlier, Curtis learned of the situation and sent Colonel Jefferson C. Davis with 1,400 men to secure the situation. Davis has his men play sarcastically Dixie as they march. It is here now. Davis has arrived. In the woods, 2 Union Illinois regiments under Davis meet Ebert's force. The fight is point blank, and the smoke obscures sight. I know it's cheesy, but the fighting is harsh. Men fall from their lines, and volleys are sent from one line into the other. Ebert slowly advances, but soon part of his force gets confused, instead diverting to the main Union force, but are stopped by a single man, Captain Black. Black fires a revolver at them, displaying a huge deal of bravery, all alone. He is then killed and his guns taken, but he has bought enough time. Ostrowski's forces that were earlier routed now return and move back into the Union center. Colonel Davis then sends 2 Indian regiments to fight the Confederates. The Confederate lines hold, but it's on the back foot now. The situation has been secured for the Union. The day is theirs for the taking. Colonel Ebert moves slowly shifting towards the Union line, and he is captured. Command of the forces are handed to Colonel Evander McNair, and the division is handed to Colonel Elkanah Greer. The Confederate forces have lost a lot of leaders, and Herbert's force gives in, withdrawing back to the main Confederate body. They arrive back at the camp and realize they charge alone, not helping their depleted morale. The Confederate forces are now led by Greer, who is outranked by Brigadier General Pike, but Pike isn't in the chain of command. Anyways, Pike doesn't care and just declares himself commander. Thus ends the fighting of the first day, except this is only half the battle. To the right of Leetown is Elkhorn Tavern. In the morning, Colonel Carr took Dodge's brigade to reinforce the 24th Missouri at the tavern. Carr is opposed by Price's division, of course led by Major General Earl Van Dorn. Does any part of the Confederate command make sense? Carr sends out Missouri infantry to scout the Confederate positions. Near noon, the 2 forces meet. They skirmish for a little bit, and the Missouri infantry retreats. Van Dorn is taken by surprise. The Union shouldn't be here. He should be back south of the Confederate positions. He is worried. Instead of advancing in the quicker column, he orders a battle line to be formed, which is weird. He is normally an offensive leader when the opposing army isn't there. Missouri State Guard are forced to move uphill towards the Union position, but their line is disorganized, and Carr uses the time to prepare his line. Union can't retreat now or else they will risk losing supplies. Carr sends immediately for reinforcements. He is very clearly outnumbered. He then riskily takes Iowa artillery forward and opens up onto the Confederate forces, confusing the Missourians and causing a lot of casualties amongst their line. The Iowans can't survive for long as the Missourians have ended their confusion and started opening fire. They stand. Then, the leader calls to them, "Give them hell, boys! Don't let them have it all on their own way! Give them hell!" This energizes his men, and they continue their fire. Carr is struck. Then again, and a third time. Men take sheets of lead and return with deafening cannon fire. Van Dorn has no idea what is happening. He fears that a giant amount of men, the Union, is just in front of him. But no worry. Brigadier General McCulloch will arrive soon in the enemy's flank. Yes, McCulloch will save him. The Missouri State Guard continues to exchange cannon fire, not pressing with their numbers. Curtis orders the rest of the 4th Division to Carr. 2nd Brigade under Colonel Van Devere arrives and bolsters Carr line with the addition of 1,000 men. Then some cavalry and artillery arrive. An hour later, the 8th Indiana. Great odds now. Carr is only outnumbered 2-1. He calls forward more artillery, then orders spoiler attacks. The two sides exchange some volleys, and then they withdraw. Union then advances again, fires, and then withdraws. Each time they do so, Van Dorn gets further confirmation that the enemy against him outnumbers him. At 3, Sterling Price wounded, and becomes delirious with pain. At this time, Van Dorn actually realizes he's facing a pretty small enemy. He orders a full line assault, advancing actually past the Union left. Carr then creates a smaller line. Van Dorn now just needs to envelop the Union line, and he will have the day. At 5, the Missouri State Guard charges, but their disorganization is the death of them. They overlap and are unable to fully push their advantage. Union is able to open fire at deadly ranges. Prejudice might be outnumbered, but their skill more than makes up for it. Their secure spot bolsters their spirit, allowing them to hold and even start winning. The Confederates can't push and even start losing ground. Then, Price regroups, and at 6, the Union infantry starts to withdraw. Their artillery continues to fire, holding the enemy back. Some guns withdrawn this time, some are captured. So, in total, the Missourians don't win. Union withdrawal is successful. They form up behind a fence south of the tavern. At 6:30, Van Dorn orders another assault, and darkness comes in. Carr's men are worried, but are soon reinforced by the 2nd Division's 1st Brigade. Their line is now strong, stronger than Van Dorn realizes. Confederates rush through the field with a rebel yell, then light. Canister shells pour into the Confederate ranks. Only a few hundred arrive at the Union line. The infantry then appear and pour volley after volley into them. The Confederates are forced back. The charge is over quickly, but is disastrous for the Confederacy. Hope for a quick victory is dashed. Earl Van Dorn is going to have to sit in for this one. Night has fallen. Curtis uses the nighttime to prepare his forces for the next day by concentrating them in a singular location. His earlier positions southwards are abandoned. Carr is reinforced, all men are fed and resupplied. During the night, Van Dorn learns of McIntosh's death and realizes the problem he is at. He is unable to fully organize, and with hubris, he believes victory is imminent. As day breaks, Van Dorn sees the entire enemy forces against him, and he freezes. Curtis waits for his opponent to make a disadvantaged move, before realizing he must attack. He forms a line of battle. To Franz Sigel, he gives the artillery and prepares a final assault. Sigel's cannons open up fire for 2 hours, dwarfing any previous artillery bombardment. Rear General Franz Sigel brilliantly leads the cannonade. The bombardment is heard all the way in Springfield and decimates the Confederate artillery. Some shots hit the Confederate infantry regiments, causing momentary panic. Confederate infantry is shaken, then horrified. The Union line moves as one, fights as one, and is ready to crush them at once. With bayonets, the Union march, and with bayonets, they fight. Van Dorn knows it is over. His men withdraw, piecemeal. Some desperately fight a last stand. The Army of the Southwest has taken the field in victory. Curtis and Sigel acknowledge each other with a firm handshake. The decisive Union victory is had. Missouri is safe, and Arkansas will be the next battlefield. The Union lost 203 killed, 980 wounded, and 201 missing. Confederates took 2,000 to 2,500 casualties, including many of their officers. Van Dorn lost contact with his supply train. Men deserted en masse. Pike doesn't realize the Confederate army is still intact and returns to Indian Territory with his men. Curtis returns to Missouri, ready to begin the operation against Arkansas. Also on the 8th, the CSS Virginia is launched, a Confederate ironclad, a 12-gun controller of the sea, if the assignment to the CSA's Navy is to be believed at least. It instantly heads for the Union blockade at Hampton Roads. It is joined by 5 fellow Confederate naval ships for the attack. Opposing it are 5 warships: the sloop of war USS Cumberland, the frigate USS Congress, USS St. Louis, USS Roanoke, and the USS Minnesota, along with many other small vessels. The CSS Virginia approaches, and the tugboat Zouave opens fire. Nothing. The vessels fall silent, not wishing to waste ammunition against the perceived opponent. The Virginia is close to Cumberland when it opens a terrifying shot to the Cumberland. Cumberland and Congress then open fire, but the shots just bounce off the Virginia. Then, the Virginia doesn't fire. It's charging the Cumberland. Crash! It rams into the ship right below the waterline. The Cumberland starts sinking, but it still fires defiantly to the last point. Virginia seems like it's going to go down with it. The ram got stuck, and it is possible that this ramming mission could become a suicide mission, but is not to be, as the Virginia escapes and turns its eye towards Congress. Catching the Congress, not wishing to suffer the fate of the 121 drowned men, or their more lucky but still not well off 29 wounded compatriots, orders his ship to be grounded. The Congress starts running away, but the rest of the Confederate fleet catches up, starts bombarding it. After an hour, the Congress surrenders. Then a cannon shot from a Union battery happens. For some reason, the Confederate Navy then opens fire on the Congress, despite its surrender. The Congress catches fire, and isn't taken. Virginia has lost 2 men dead, more wounded, and its smokestack damaged. They want to continue the offensive, but nighttime has arrived. No problem. The CSS Virginia is uncontested on the seas. The rest of the Union naval units can't even damage her. Lincoln's cabinet meets on the day. Secretary of State Seward and Secretary of the Treasury Chase are shaken and unusually quiet. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton is frightened. He warns of the Confederate Navy attacking New York, Boston, and even the White House. Then Secretary of the Navy Gideon Welles speaks. Virginia can't traverse the Potomac. Not to worry. Union has its own superweapon on the way. The captain of the Virginia is wounded and is replaced by a lieutenant. The lieutenant decides now is the time to finish off the Union fleet. And in the morning of the 12th, they make their way to the enemy confident. They're blocked by what? USS Monitor, an ironclad, with 2 guns led by acting master Louis N. Stoddard. They are an equal match. The Virginia opens fire and overshoots the Monitor and hits the USS Minnesota. Minnesota then fires broadsides. Both the Monitor and Virginia move closer to each other. Shells are fired, hit, and then bounce off the iron sheets. Virginia has no armor-piercing shells, and the Monitor doesn't have a high enough charge to pierce the Virginia. Sheridan leans from the Monitor's turret against the wall when a shell hits it, knocking him unconscious. Officer Schimmer takes over. Ships continue to fight until a lucky shot. Paint is knocked off the Monitor and into the gun slips, blinding Lieutenant Worden. The Monitor withdraws to get an order. The Virginia thinks the Monitor won't return and decides to also withdraw, leaving the Minnesota alone. She's out of reach. And also, hopefully fix some of the damage the Union did. The Monitor does return and finds no enemy. Both sides claim victory. Stephen Mallory, the Secretary of the Navy, writes to Davis, "The conduct of the officers and men of the squadron reflects unfailing honor upon themselves and upon the Navy. The report will be read with deep interest, and the details will not fail to rouse the ardor and nerve the arms of our gallant seamen. It will be remembered that the Virginia was a novelty in naval architecture, holding like any ship that ever floated, that our heaviest guns were equal novelties in ordnance, that our motive power and obedience to our helm were untried, and our officers and crews strangers comparatively to the ship and to each other, and yet, under all these disadvantages, the destined courage and consummate professional ability of Flag Officer Buchanan and his associates achieved the most remarkable victory which naval annals record. The U.S. Congress decides to award the crew of the Monitor. Resolved, the thanks of the Congress and the American people are due and are hereby tendered to Lieutenant J. L. Worden of the United States Navy, to the officers and men of the ironclad gunboat Monitor, under his command, for the skill and gallantry exhibited by them in the remarkable battle between the Monitor and the rebel ironclad steamer Merrimac. Casualty-wise, it is a victory for the Confederacy. They lost 261 men dead, 108 wounded, 2 frigates sunk, 2 frigates damaged, and 1 ironclad damaged. Confederates lost 7 men dead, 17 wounded, and an ironclad and gunboat damaged. But they lost their chance to make use of the undisputed control of the sea. Neither side seemed willing to assault the other, meaning the blockade stand. On the 10th, Britain and France recognized Zanzibar as an independent protectorate of the British Empire. Why does this matter? Well, first, Britain and France recognizing things is scary for the US, and second, Zanzibar still does a lot of slave trading. Britain and France made slavery legal a while ago. This was a major point of contention in the past between them and the CSA, but it appears no longer will slavery be a reason for not recognizing nations. Though the CSA is not a UK protectorate, it might not have as much leeway in this regard. On the 11th, McClellan is out as General-in-Chief. His generalship over the Army of the Potomac remains. He is replaced by a war board made up of President Lincoln, Edwin Stanton, and other important men. In reality, it is Stanton who replaces him. Lincoln sells the change to McClellan as a way to ensure that Fighting Mac can focus slowly on the Army of the Potomac. McClellan takes it on good faith, but suspicion soon follows. But McClellan can't spend his time worrying about politics. Soon, he will execute his plan to take Richmond and end this war. The same day, Major General Henry Halleck is given the Department of the Mississippi, adding Kansas and Ohio to his already existing Department of the Missouri. This gives Halleck the complete responsibility of the entire western theater of the war. From the 11th to the 12th, Major General Stonewall Jackson withdraws his men from Winchester. What is he doing? All I can say is around this time, Major General John C. Fremont, the one who used to control the West, is given the Mountain Department, opposite Stonewall, in addition to the 5th Corps, which is already against Stonewall. On the 12th, Brigadier General John Pope, currently in New Madrid, Missouri, receives his heavy gun. This once again surprises the Confederate forces under Brigadier General McCown. They immediately start setting up a place to use their siege guns and work through the night to accomplish this goal. Same day, former Senator Andrew Johnson, who resigned on the 4th from his Tennessee Senate position, is given the military governorship of Tennessee. Johnson is a trusted man, the only remaining senator from a seceded state, and a friend of Lincoln for this reason. In fact, he's had a lot of control over the White House's policy regarding the state of Tennessee. The Senate confirms him and gives him the rank of Brigadier General. On the 13th, the Fugitive Slave Act is effectively over. Congress approves, in addition to the Article of War. No army is to return any runaway slaves. Anyone who does will be court-martialed. This is a huge victory for the Republicans in Congress, and a deep blow to the Copperhead Democrats. The same day, back to New Madrid. Pope has got his guns up and ready. They open fire and blast the Confederate positions, forcing McCown to call a council of war that night. Confederate Navy there requests that they are allowed to withdraw, and they decide to withdraw the Confederate infantry with them. At 11 at night, a storm hits, hiding the withdrawal, but also adding to the confusion of it. Despite the weather, the withdrawal is successful. Lastly, full General Robert.E.Lee is recalled from his coastal deployment to Richmond, Virginia. President of the CSA, Jefferson Davis, wants him as a military advisor. Lee's first advice: dig in. He gets a major trench digging operation upon arrival. Then there is Sickles. Last week, he destroyed an enemy corps, bested his rival Longstreet. This week, he returns back and reports his decisive victory. His men are energized by their victory, look to their general as the great leader he is. Then he receives word: Willie Lincoln died. The 20th of February, and while Tad survived, the family is devastated. Sickles has grown close to the Lincoln family, and the loss hurts him like the loss of a child he never had. That's where the week ends, and it ends with a lot going on. Not since Bull Run have we seen such action in a single week. In fact, Allmeyer's reporting, this week answers more questions than any other. Will the Union continue to win the West? Yes. Is the Mississippi going to be fought over? Yes. Are ironclads the future of naval combat? Yes. Is Lincoln tired of McClellan? Yes. Does Lincoln trust Stanton? Yes. Is Congress acting more against slavery? Yes. Will the Union win? Hello, it's the entire Civil War week by week team here. That is a weird motto to have. And I want a new outro. So, if you liked the video, please like it. If you want to see more, you should be seeing suggested videos right about now. And if you want to know what happens next week, please subscribe. And if you want to share history, give me suggestions in a more easy way than YouTube comments, or want to tell me how wrong I am, please check out the channel's Discord.